Alright folks, welcome back to our fun little dots game. Last time we saw how we created the dot object, and we saw how clicking on the screen called the add method, which adds things into our array list. And so today we're going to look at removing things from our array list and how that is going to work out. So we're going to look at this method first. I'm going to provide you guys this code, so feel free to mess around with it if you want. The way that my program works is that if you hold on to one of the dots too long, then it pops. And again, we can see here that if we look through the code here, I only actually call the remove function once. Remember, dots is the actual array list, so it's keeping track of every single dot object that we have. And I can recall remove, but I have to tell it which one. In fact, I've even called the variable which one. You don't have to use this word which one, but I just decided that would be a funny name for the variable. So up here at the very top, we actually declare an integer called which one, and I can keep track of which one I'm holding on to with this variable. And the way that I do that is right here. So if I press the mouse, I look to see if I clicked on a dot. Okay? So what I do is I loop through all of the dots, okay, and I touch each dot, and that's what a loop does. So you can see here I'm kind of doing this like I would with arrays, but I'm using the get method. So before we remove, let's actually talk about get. Get allows me to access that specific thing. It's kind of like typing this, dots, I. If dots was an actual standard array, this would be the syntax for getting at a specific piece inside the dot array. But because array lists are actually much more complicated than arrays, we have to use a separate method. So we say dots dot get. And so we get this I. So it's the same idea. We're just looping through it. And then all I'm doing is checking to see if the mouse position, X and Y, are close enough to the X position and the Y position of any given dot, which is why we're visiting all of them. If it is very, very close to one of the centers, like in other words, if I'm clicking on a dot, then we say we found one, we set this equal to true, and then we set this variable which one equal to I, because that's the position in the array list that we want to sort of remember, that that's the dot we're touching. And then also I said if you click on a dot, you can go ahead and add 5 to the radius. So you can see here I'm saying a dot r plus equals 5. So big idea here that we just learned was you've got to use the get method. You can't just type dots I or dots 5. That's not going to work. This isn't an array. We're learning an array list. And remember, array lists are better than arrays because we can shrink them and expand them however we want during the program. So let's say you held on to a dot for a really long time. We can go down here to the mouse dragged function, which is I don't think you guys have ever seen this before. It's another special function that processing has that obviously it fires if the mouse is dragged, which means the button is down and the mouse is moving. And you can see here that we have a dot if we have a which one set. Okay, so we have a dot that is a which one, so we know what it is. In other words, we identified it up here. This if worked. Right? We set which one because we actually clicked on a mouse. Then we're going to move that dot to wherever the mouse is. So this is how we actually drag the dots around the screen. But we're actually going to change the color too. So you can see here I'm accessing all of these different fields that are inside of each of these dots. So this t dot is just some stupid variable, and the t stands for temporary. So really I'm just filling a variable called t dot with this whatever dot this happens to be. And then here I'm actually taking the color down by 2, the deepness, I suppose. And then I have here, this is how we pop the dot. If the deepness, so if the deepness of the temporary dot, which is this one, is less than 0, then boom, we're going to kill that dot. And what's cool about array lists is the list just magically compresses. So if we have dot 1, dot 2, dot 3, and dot 4, and we are grabbing onto dot 2 and it pops, it just collapses the list down and the array still functions. Normal arrays do not work like this. Okay, and then we reset which one back to 0, which means we're actually grabbing onto the 0th one. Maybe this isn't the best interface, but you guys can play around with it all you want. So that's how remove works. The big idea here is if you call add or remove or get, you have to be able to specify which part of the array list you want to work on. So you can see here, I've created an array list now that's pretty big. If I grab one of these, it identifies that I grabbed it, it's turning it darker and darker and darker until it pops, and then it redraws the lines. I can grab these ones until it pops, and then it gets so dark that it finally removes. So that's what the removal does. Okay, enjoy.